Taking from the top of the ranks, and I've been doing just fine. Gotta take Kamara, even though it's not time. Started out with a pick. How did it end up like this? It was only round three. Now I'm stuck in my head because I reached way too far. Took him way over ADP. This regret's gonna last. My league's making it fun. They all screenshot the draft. It was pick 26. Rattler turning Saints into bummy. Won't score any points for me. Round 3 is just the price I pay. The sacko is calling me. Open up my Jewish borderline Asian eyes. After the draft, Jerry went home and cried. Rattler turning Saints into bummy. Won't score any points for me. Round 3 is just the price I pay. The sacko is calling me. Open up my Jewish borderline Asian eyes. After the draft, Jerry went home and cried. Welcome into the Showtime Fantasy Football Podcast. Today is Tuesday, August 26th, 2025. This is your host, Ty Stewart, three-time champion of the Blind Squirrels Fantasy League from sunny Dallas, Texas. Welcoming in my co-host, the Bengals stack master himself from Rogers, Arkansas. Also three-time champion and current sacko of the Blind Squirrels League, Trayton Benz. How we doing, brother?
Doing good. Got my Circle the Wagons merch hat on.
Circle the Wagons Joe Burrow card, Brandon Aubrey card, and Mark Scamdrews.
Yep, all sporting our Circle the Wagons merch. Obviously, Luke's living in the past. He realizes he's never going to win again, so he has to milk as much out of his title from last year as possible, while the rest of us are focused on this year. So yeah, I mean, everyone's 0-0. This is everyone's favorite time of the year. Everyone's 0-0. No heartbreak yet. No wins. We're just looking ahead to football. We got college football this weekend, so that'll be a good intro to the season before we get into some NFL next week.
Yeah, week 0 is always kind of just the original appetizer to what really is college football season, and the draft. Maybe a hot take here. I kind of liked having it during week 0 and not during week 1, because next week we'll really get to dive in and watch all these great games. And this past weekend we only really missed one solid game. We still got to watch some of it and watch the highlights. And I want the draft weekend to just fully be about the draft. I know last year we kind of introduced this whole like draft weekend thing where we all come in, get an Airbnb, make a whole full thing out of it. I think we all left last year agreeing like this is the way to do a fantasy football draft. We bring that back this year. Head up to Beaver Lake. Trayton Benz acquires a phenomenal Airbnb that proved to be a great time. It was just good hangs with the boys, good memes made. We played some Avalon, had some great food, played a solid round of scramble golf, got out on the lake a little bit. Shout out to the McCombs boat. It was just a good weekend all around, even despite events following around the draft. So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the weekend as a whole. What was your favorite non-draft moment of the weekend?
I mean, golf. I think golf was always the highlight. Obviously, our team didn't come out on top, but I feel like it's still a lot of fun to compete out there in something that like none of us are great at. You know, obviously Cannon is pretty good, carried y'all's team, but it's just kind of fun to get out there and talk shit on the court.
Actually, Jerry carried us.
Yeah, actually, I heard. Do you want to address the allegations that they took the least amount of your shots?
Yeah, that was horseshit. All the viewers at home can attest to that if they were watching the live stream of the golf round, because I was definitely second to Cannon in terms of shots taken. And I didn't really have it off the tee, didn't really have it on the green, but my chips were definitely the best of the group outside of Mr. Kern. So we're going to need to check the stats on that one. Not really buying Luke's whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
it sounds like your team though did have a lot of contributors. Like on the non-cannon holes, Cole had a few good shots. Jerry was pretty consistent off the tee when y'all took his shots as far as like just going straight. Luke seems to be a putting master. And then Cannon obviously just all around for our team. I would say Andrew and Josh, we took a majority of their shots, but me and Will also contributed in key spots. So kind of the point of a scramble. Everyone contributes. Everyone has fun. A 2-shot game. Honestly, it was still within reach halfway through hole 18 when you guys kind of had to get up and down. Cannon hit a crucial little chip there to a close putt, forcing us to basically try to chip it in. But we could have got up and down for birdie, and y'all could have bogeyed. But that was a nice chip, game-winning shot from Captain Cannell.
yeah, gonna address this slander in the chat. Luke says I didn't contribute a shot to hole 10. That actually might be true. Low key was a back nine merchant. My front nine, I was just warming up. Hadn't hit a golf ball in 6 months. I know some of you losers went to Top Golf and have been playing 5 times a week since last year. I just came out there raw, was the vibes guy. Our team held it together. We were supporting each other, supporting Cannon. It was a great round. So nobody cares about golf, though. They are here to hear our thoughts on the draft. So
I was going to ask, kind of as we head into the draft, want to get your final thoughts on the sacko punishment. We obviously had the national anthem. What did you think of that? Was it a pretty good sacko punishment? Did it end up surpassing your expectations at all?
Yeah, I think it played better than I had pictured in my head. I thought it was going to be kind of awkward, but it ended up being fun. We all held the little American flags. I'll give your singing like a B minus, B somewhere in there. It was a good effort. I do have to give you credit for what I believe Luke described as earnest effort to sing a national anthem. You definitely put some voice into it. So I got to give you credit there. It was a good anthem. You didn't forget any words that I can remember, so good job by you. And it was a good way to kick off the draft. So solid wrap to a mid sacko ship.
What about the food? Let's discuss the food real quick. What was the high? What was the low of all the snacks and the food either Friday or Saturday?
See, high and low of snacks. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, these little Buffalo seasoned pretzel sticks are kind of fire. Dots, shout out Dots, maybe a new sponsor. Been munching on those since the weekend. Those things are great. The fish was awesome. It was a good change of pace for what we usually do. Obviously, the zebra cakes. I was munching. I probably had at least 3 packs of zebra cakes, so that's a lot of calories there, but it's okay. We bounced back. We've already gotten our 20,000 steps in for today, and we're back on the Diet Coke. That's 0 calories, fellas. Luke says Trey's hat game is fire, but no, it was good. Obviously, we're gonna always bring up the rare burgers from Belford. That reminds me, this podcast is presented by Belford's Burgers, where the only thing more rare than their meat is championships. So. No, it was good. The fish was good, and I enjoyed it very much. So, all right, let's jump into football because the reason we get together every year is for Christmas. It's for the draft. I know we all woke up with that excitement. Football season is just around the corner. Just 9 days from today, the Eagles will be kicking off against the Cowboys. It's going to be electric. So let's see how the 2025 Blind Squirrels draft ended up. Round 1 recap. All right. So let's talk about the draft. You had the number 1 pick. So I do kind of want to get your thoughts on, you came out, you set the tone from memory. Didn't take you long. It seemed like you were pretty set on what you wanted to do there with the 101. You took Jamar Chase very emphatically. And I made this comment after the draft. It seemed like this was maybe the fastest first round in the history of Blind Squirrels. Everyone had done their mocks. They came prepared. They knew what was going to be left for them, and they already had those priorities made up in their mind. The only person who took a little bit of time with their first round pick was Josh. And of course, that ended up getting him roasted for pretty much the next 4 hours. So you went Jamar Chase at 101 there. Was there ever a thought of Bijan, or was it Chase the whole way?
I mean, I had a month to think about it. So, of course, classic me, I'm going to overthink it and kind of go back and forth. There was a time where I was thinking maybe Bijan just for that safety of getting or strategy of getting a running back in the first round. But once the Falcons had a couple major offensive line injuries, I decided I'm not going to overthink it anymore. Jamar Chase is the clear, like there's really no way that he doesn't have a great season unless him or Burrow get hurt. And so you got to take Jamar Chase at number one.
Yeah, Cole follows up Jamar with Bijan, kind of the consensus top two guys there. No surprises through 2 picks. Will goes with Jahmyr Gibbs at the 103. Maybe not the consensus third best player. You thought maybe a Lamb, maybe a Saquon would come off the board there. How surprised were you that Will decided to go Gibbs with the 103?
I mean, a little surprised, but he had Gibbs last year. Gibbs was great for him. And honestly, Gibbs is such a safe player as well in that Lions offense with his role. So you can't really blame him. I do think the top 5, I bet, was like a set top 5. I don't think anyone else was getting into that top 5. And so the order of 3, 4, 5, I could have seen really going anyway.
Andrew sticks to his wide receiver heavy recency. Cannon then goes back to the Saquon Bustery Barkley well. Got Saquon last year in the second round. Takes it again here at the 105. To me, this is a value. I actually had Saquon as my number 1 running back in fantasy, second best player overall. How did y'all let Cannon grab Saquon at a value for the second year in a row?
I mean, it's still the top 5, and everyone gets a player in the first round. So I'm not going to act like this is some screaming value. I mean, Barkley's going to be good, but so is CD, so is Jahmyr. I don't really see this as some screaming value.
Jerry was pretty much holding Cannon's pocket on the way up to the board. He was so ready to pick Justin Jefferson at 106. And then Luke just can't quit Christian McCaffrey. He loves that upside. Call Annabeth Hall, Asian Little, get her on the phone. Christian McCaffrey, once again, a first-round pick, once again on Luke Rapert's team. What did you think about him going with CMC there at the 107?
Not surprised. Like you said, Luke can't really quit him. So, he has, I feel like, been burned by him in the past, maybe. So I'm a little surprised he was so quick to jump back at him. And this was right after the Brian Robinson news, so I wasn't sure if that was going to kind of drop McCaffrey, but Luke's all in and kind of looking at who went off the board after him. It makes sense. Christian McCaffrey has the most upside of anyone else in the first round.
After Luke takes McCaffrey, Max, who was drafting remotely, goes with Nico Collins, stud wide receiver from the Texans, and then I finish out the first round with rookie running back sensation Ashton Genty, and then on the turn, Josh goes Malik Neighbors, Derrick Henry. What if you want to argue which one was first, which was second? Doesn't really matter. He took Neighbors and Genty there at the 1-2 turn. So looking at the first round, definitely not a ton of surprises. Any major takeaways from the first round, or just kind of a chalk and move on?
Pretty much chalk. I thought Derrick Henry deserved to go in the first round. Now, he was the first pick of the second round, but just with how many touchdowns he scored last year and us being in half PPR, I definitely thought Henry would find his way to the first round. So I would think that's a pretty good value for Josh grabbing him in the second.
All right, coming back around in round 2, this is where we really start to see how people want to build their rosters, right? Josh goes Neighbors and Henry. He takes one stud for each position there. I am going running back. At the 202, I go with Green Bay Packers running back Josh Jacobs. Now, definitely heard some reaches as I went up to the board there and took Jacobs. What were your thoughts on the Jacobs pick? Definitely probably earlier than his ADP goes, but from my perspective, I thought he was the best workhorse running back on the board left, and I actually attempted to trade back because there were some other running backs here that I did really like, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown. I would have been fine with any of those guys along with Jacobs, but no one was biting on the trade, and at some point you just kind of have to bite the bullet and take your top ranked guys. So I went with Jacobs at the 202.
Yeah, and I really like Jacobs. I think he's worth a pick there. It's not necessarily going to win your league, but he's very, very safe. I think that maybe some other people in our league just think he's a little boring, and they would prefer breakout candidates like Bucky Irving or maybe Devon Achane. So I could see it either way, but I'm personally on your side. I thought he was worth a pick there.
So I go with a running back approach. Max goes the opposite, took Nico Collins in round 1, then comes back around at the 203, grabbing Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua with a wide receiver start. What did you think of the Puka pick?
I liked it. Honestly, it's a really safe way to start your team. Nico and Puka are two young, absolute stud receivers. The only thing that could go wrong is maybe Matthew Stafford's back for Puka, but besides that, Puka and Nico are such proven young studs that's like a very safe way to start your draft.
And then after grabbing CMC in the first round, Luke comes back around at the 204, grabbing Sun God Amon-Ra St. Brown. Feel like he usually goes higher than this in past drafts, but with the concerns of Ben Johnson leaving the Lions, Jameson Williams maybe taking a bigger piece of that smaller pie, Sun God falls here to the middle of round 2. What did you think about the value there for Sun God?
That's right around where I have him. Again, he's very, very safe. Luke has grabbed him in the past, so kind of see a pattern here with Luke grabbing a couple guys he's had previously.
So Luke goes with a balanced approach. Jeremiah also goes with a wide receiver running back start, taking Devon Achane at the 205. Was this the right spot for Achane, or should the calf injury have scared Jerry off a little bit more?
It's tough because you look at the running backs that went after Achane. You got Bucky, Chase Brown, Taylor. Achane should be better than most of them if he's healthy. And I don't think Jerry wanted to start receiver there. So I guess at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the injury. There's reports that he's probably going to play week 1, but with a calf injury, you never really know. And it could just be one of those things that lingers. Personally, I probably would have strayed away from Achane for another couple of picks, but honestly, the way Jerry drafted it seemed like he didn't know any news from the NFL this preseason, so that's just what happened.
All right, and then round 2 finishes up with 5 straight balanced teams finishing off their 1-2. Cannon adds BTJ to Saquon. Andrew pairs CeeDee Lamb with Bucky Irving. Will goes Gibbs and then comes around and takes Drake London, wide receiver for the Falcons, at the 208. Cole, after taking Bijan, goes A.J. Brown back to the well with A.J. Brown for Cole at the 209. And then after taking Jamar Chase at the 101, you come back and grab Jonathan Taylor at the 210. Other than your own, which of those 4, Cole, Will, Andrew, and Cannon, which of those 4 2-round combo players, wide receiver, running back, do you like the best?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cannon. I liked Saquon and BTJ. Saquon was my number 2 running back, and BTJ was like my number 5 wide receiver. So in my rankings, he got a top 5 guy at each position. I love BTJ's upside this year, and obviously Saquon, if he repeats anything to the degree he did last year, that's going to be a smash combo in rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah, we talk about it. It's kind of hard to screw up rounds 1 and 2, right? You're just taking the best players in football on the planet, and we kind of know who those guys are at this point. I don't think, looking through the first 2 rounds, are there any names other than Genty that have not proven to be very good football players on an NFL football field?
No, but what I would ask you is who, even despite that, is there anyone in these first 2 rounds that you would say has a high risk of being a bust?
High risk of being a bust? Like, let's say,
I guess
like,
who has
over than 50% chance of being a
who has
bust?
the most risk of being a bust? Like, you might still start them for the year, but they become more of like a flex with their scoring output.
The 2 that stick out to me are Achane and Puka. Achane, it's due to the injury and just me not being a believer in the Dolphins. Puka, it's half the Stafford back stuff and half I think Devontae Adams is still a very good wide receiver, and I think Devontae can still take away from Puka enough, especially in the red zone, to where Puka is kind of a yards merchant. And, the Cooper Kupp thing, Cooper Kupp was washed. He was fading out. I think Devontae's skill set is more similar to Puka, to where I think they'll operate in the same area of the field. And Devontae is arguably still the better player at this point in their career. And I know he went 2 rounds later, and there's a lot of excitement around Puka, but Achane and Puka are the two that stick out to me of could end up, looking back and being massive busts in round 2.
Yeah, for me, I'll go Bucky as my most likely, and then AJ Brown as a second. With Bucky, I'm a little concerned that he kind of took advantage of a really good schedule last year, and he's going to be sharing to some degree with Potato and Sean Tucker, and maybe the Bucs offense just isn't as good as they were down the stretch last year. And then with AJ Brown, he's got this hamstring injury. And honestly, the Eagles don't really throw the ball that much. So if Devontae Smith just potentially takes another step and they continue to lean on the run, I could see AJ Brown not being like an absolute stud.
All right. I kind of wanted to, before we dive into the team rankings, best picks, worst picks, I kind of wanted to just dive into some overall themes of the Blind Squirrels 2025 draft, kind of get your thoughts on some of those, and then maybe dive into some of the teams and how they chose construct their roster this season. So my first theme that I wanted to look at, balanced starts. We just talked about it, right? With the 1-2 turn, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 managers decide to go wide receiver, running back with their first 2 picks. That means no one other than Max and I went running back, or wide receiver, which I'd have to look back at past draft boards, but that definitely feels a little unusual. It feels like sometimes people come in with wanting a more wide receiver heavy or running back heavy approach. A lot of people came into this that I just want one good one of each and I'll figure it out from there. What's your takeaway from that? Is that just how the board fell, or do you think there is something to going more balanced to open up more opportunities to construct your strategy in the later rounds 3 and beyond?
Honestly, I think that's just kind of how the rankings and the board fell this year. Like, there was enough running backs and receivers in both rounds that people liked, where it was very easy to take one in the first and the other in the second. Like, there wasn't some massive fall off in round 1 or 2 at either position. And so I think people, if they can, always like to start balanced because it gives them the most flexibility. And also, now that we're a 2 flex league, I think people just like to have depth at both. And the best way to do that is starting off with one of each.
Absolutely. All right. Second draft theme I kind of wanted to run by you is 3 onesies in a row early in the 3rd round. I think we've seen quarterbacks get creeped up into the middle of the 3rd round, usually not as early as 22, 23 overall. And then we even have Luke trading up aggressively, going for Brock Bowers at 21 at the 302. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. We didn't see another onesie go till the 4th round, but that Bowers, Allen, Lamar trio, Luke, Will, and Andrew just went for them. They wanted to be elite at those onesie positions there at 302, 303, 304. What were your thoughts there? Were you surprised how early those quarterbacks went? And do you think the value for the positional advantage will be worth it for them in the end?
For Bowers, definitely. I actually really loved that trade by Luke. He did give up a lot trading back in the 4th, 6th, and 10th. But honestly, looking at who he got in the 4th, 6th, and 10th, I don't feel like he lost any value with those trade downs. And to come up and get Brock Bowers to pair with Christian McCaffrey and Sun God, that's a really nice 3-player start. And I think there's a lot of tight ends this year who just won't be able to even touch what Brock Bowers does. At quarterback, Will going Josh Allen. It was a little earlier than I expected Allen to come off the board. I just thought he'd go closer to the 3-4 turn, but I think Josh Allen has scored like 40 total touchdowns in 5 straight years, so it's hard to argue with just nabbing him as your quarterback. And then Lamar Jackson was amazing last year, number 1 quarterback. So as soon as Josh Allen goes off the board, it's not hard to see Lamar going off not that much later. So I liked the picks for all 3. It was, with the quarterbacks, it surprised me a little bit, but honestly, looking at the running backs and receivers around them, you can't say any of them are safer picks than Allen and Lamar. So I like it from Will and Andrew.
Talk to me a little bit about your strategy coming into the 2-3 turn. You go Chase at 1. You're watching these running backs and wide receivers fly off the board in round 2. Are you considering Bowers? Are you considering a quarterback? Did you want to take a second Bengal? What went into the decision to stack Chase with Chase Brown and then grab JT there at the 210?
Yeah, I had a top 21 players that I knew I was guaranteed 3 of them, and but my ideal start would have been to go Jamar Chase, running back, and thankfully I had like those 2 running backs, Taylor and Brown, who I got above guys like AJ Brown, who went in front of me, so that he kind of pushed value down. I would have taken Brock Bowers too if one of those 2 guys was gone. I liked Bucky Irving as well, but not as much as Taylor and Brown. So it pretty much fell perfectly for me to grab Taylor and Brown there. That was like my ideal start, was Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, and Jonathan Taylor. And I don't really mind having 2 Bengals. I feel like I got made fun of a little bit for that, but in my opinion, with the way their defense is set up, to be horrible, that offense is going to need to produce so many yards and touchdowns that I don't see many down weeks for them where I'm worrying about the Bengals not putting up enough points for me to be successful.
All right. Let's jump into just looking at some of these teams and how they were constructed. Trey, give me a number 1 through 10.
5.
All right, we're going to take a look at Cannon's team and how he chose to construct his roster. So we already talked about it. He goes Saquon at the 105. Cannot complain about Saquon Barkley there as the 5th best player. He was the number 1 running back in fantasy last year. Coming back around goes BTJ. Again, cannot argue with that start. Saquon, BTJ, I think they were both the highest player on my board when he took them. Round 3 goes Kyren Williams. So we go running back, receiver, running back. Kyren Williams been on the last 2 Blind Squirrels Fantasy Championship teams. Got paid in the offseason. Looks to be the workhorse for McVay for a 3rd year in a row. Don't hate the pick there as an RB2. I think Kyron's value has fallen to the point where he's definitely worth taking. Any risk, I think, is kind of nullified there by going at pick 25. Now, if Kyren was going where like Bucky and Devon Achane and Josh Jacobs were going, then you could talk me into maybe a potential bust case. But I just think Kyren, middle of round 3, he's been so good the last few years. Even if there's a fall off, even if Jarquez Hunter gets more involved, even if Blake Corum steals a touchdown or 2, I think he'll be worth it there at the 305. So I thought that was a great 3-pick start there from Cannon. And then he gets back to balance with his roster at the 406, comes around, takes Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he was the benefactor here of a couple of worse receivers going in front of him. Jerry took McLaurin and Max took Marvin Harrison at the 403 and 405, leaving JSN falling to Cannon at the 406. I think JSN, definitely a breakout candidate, kind of had his first good year last year, sophomore season. They got rid of Ryan Grubb. They brought in, I don't even remember. They got rid of someone. They brought in someone better. And no, they brought in Ryan Grubb. They got rid of, what was that dude's name that went to Chicago, that blew chunks or whatever? Shane Waldron. They got rid of Shane Waldron. He blew, and they bring in Ryan Grubb. The offense opens up. Metcalf and Lockett opening things up for JSN in the slot. He has his first great season. He's definitely a breakout candidate. I'm not really a JSN guy. I actually would have taken Devontae Adams and Mike Evans over JSN, but I don't think that's a bad pick there. And I do like that they got Cannon back to that balanced build, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. He goes into round 5. He can go anywhere he wants, anywhere on the board. He takes James Conner. What did you think about the Conner pick? Because he already had 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. He can go anywhere. He goes James Conner. What were your thoughts about the Conner pick?
Yeah, I mean, you can see what he liked in rounds. If you look ahead, look at what he did in rounds 6 through 8. He took receiver. So I think he was probably eyeing that round 6 through 8 range as like heavy wide receiver. So it makes sense for him to grab his RB3 in round 5 with Connor. And Connor was either the top running back on my board or right there with Chuba. I think those guys were pretty close. So, Connor's been kind of a mainstay in RB2 land for the last few years, as long as he stays healthy. So hard to hate on that pick in the middle of the 5th.
Next round, he comes back around and made what I thought was one of the better picks of the draft. We'll get into that later in our best pick segment. But Jameson Williams in the middle of round 6. Jamo had his breakout last year with over 1,000 yards, and I just think he's poised for another big explosive year. And to get him as your second flex where you can just plug him in and get these spike weeks, I think that's great value there on Jamo. Cannon then trades back in round 7 with me. I came up and grabbed Rookie Pearsall at his spot. Cannon falls back to the 709 and grabs Emeka Egbuka. That's how you say it, Cannon, you uncultured swine. And then coming back around at the 802, grabs Rome Odunze. So he had his 6 starters, and then he goes wide receiver, both projected to be bench players for him. Still opts not to take a onesie at this point. What did you think of this strategy here positionally for Mr. Kern?
I liked it. I feel like this is a year you can wait on both tight end and quarterback and be fine. And at that point in the draft, in the 7-8 turn, you still have a chance at breakout young wide receivers like Egbuka and Odunze. And so I like both of those picks a lot.
All right. And then he does finally take a onesie in the middle of round 9. Patrick Mahomes makes it all the way to round 9. Last year was taken in the 3rd round. He's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback multiple times before in his career. Last couple of years haven't been as good, but Cannon scoops him up in round 9. I thought this was phenomenal value. I know there's a lot of Mahomes doubters, Mahomes haters in our league. You can't argue with round 9. Patrick Mahomes still has the upside. He still has the arm. He still has the weapons. Obviously, the Rashee Rice situation, he may be without him for a significant portion of the season, but he's got Hollywood. He's got Worthy. He's got Kelsey, who might have lost weight. So I don't know. I think Mahomes there around 9, I thought was a great pick. It's in my best pick list as a possibility. And the fact that he got to wait that long and just soak up the value, I thought was pretty good from Cannon there at the 905.
Yeah, I didn't love it, honestly. I'm not really a big Mahomes. I feel like he could have waited another at least 1 round, maybe 2. I just don't think people in our league love Mahomes, and so I think he probably could have waited.
All right, so at this point, he's got his quarterback, he's got all of his starters, and he's got 2 high upside young bench receivers with Egbuka and Odunze. Now he starts to chip away at some running back depth. Round 10, he goes Cowboys projected starter Javonte Williams, and then in round 11, he goes with Jaguars projected starter Travis Etienne. So do you think that these quote-unquote starting running backs for these maybe bad rushing teams, maybe some ambiguity there in the backfield, are these situations where, you know what, quality depth, if something happens to Connor, if he goes down, if he's got a bye week, he knows he can put in Javonte, and Javonte can get 12 for 48 and fall in the end zone. Etienne may be more involved in the passing game this year. Do you think these are just kind of over the hill situations that you didn't want a part of?
I mean, at this point in the draft, you're kind of just grabbing guys that you can maybe play on a bye week or something, and I think he accomplished that. They don't really have great upside, I feel like. I mean, maybe, yeah, because like you're kind of expecting maybe Javonte to regain his once promising form as a rookie, and then Etienne, we've kind of seen this story over and over. Now, I will say it's pretty nice to get someone who was in round 2 last year all the way in round 11. Even though he's sharing with Tank Bigsby now. So, I mean, as far as running back depth goes, I think it's fine to grab guys like this in rounds 10, 11.
Kind of just ends up doing the same thing in round 13 or 12, getting Jerome Ford, the, again, quote-unquote starter for the Cleveland Browns. A lot to figure out there with Sampson and Judkins, and the team might suck, and who knows if Ford is really any good. He's been okay when he gets work, but it seems like they're desperately trying to find someone else to give the ball to. And then in round 13, Cannon waits all the way until the 13:05 and then finally takes his starting tight end with Kyle Pitts. He was one of many fantasy managers in this draft that were kind of playing that tight end chicken, right? We've got, Bowers and McBride come off the board early. Kittle, again, a value there, I think, at the 502. And then we slowly start to see people trickle off. You've got a Laporta in round 8. You've got a Hawkinson in round 8. But it seemed overall there were a few managers that kind of came in saying, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait until I feel like taking one. And I've got more than 10 guys I like. It's a 10-team league. I'm not going to press myself and reach for a tight end. Will gets Mark Andrews in round 10. Max takes Travis Kelce in round 11. When is the last time you could take Travis Kelce in redraft in round 11? I got Tyler Warren in round 11. Luke even takes a second tight end there with David Njoku in round 12. You go back-to-back tight end with Kincaid and Loveland at the 12-13. We'll get into that later. But Cannon here waits all the way to round 13. I think he was like the 14th tight end off the board. What do you think about this strategy of just wait, and then grab a high upside Michael Penix golfing buddy himself, Kyle Pitts?
Honestly, I think the same thing happened to Cannon that happened to me, where he was going to keep waiting at tight end until he felt like he had to take one of those Kelce, Warren, and Njoku guys. And he did the same thing as me, where he kind of chanced it in round 11 because, they were all still there, and coming back around to him, everyone already had a tight end for the most part. But what kind of messed everything up was Max and Luke both taking backup tight ends, with Max taking Kelce, Luke taking Njoku. And you took Warren, obviously. So that kind of caused panic for both me and Cannon, who were waiting. And so, yeah, he has to wait and go Kyle Pitts. I don't think that was his plan coming in. I think me and him both got surprised by the backups getting taken, because I definitely was not planning on settling for Loveland and Kincaid. That's just kind of how it happened. So I'm sure he doesn't love Pitts. He's kind of making the golfing buddy jokes, but I feel like we kind of know what Kyle Pitts is at this point. He's a bust. He kind of sucks. He's going to bagel you here and there, but maybe with Penix, he regains some kind of form where you can at least start him every week and just, get some production. But I bet Cannon will be scouring the waiver wire, or maybe reaching out to Max for a Travis Kelce trade.
I do want to bring up this chat from Cannon. He says, I would have taken Kelce, thought I'd end up with him. Yeah, I mean, once you take Mahomes and you have the opportunity to create that stack, now it's not going to be as powerful as it was when Cannon had them back in like 2021 or whatever. But if you can you can get the discount version of that in round 9, and Cannon had the opportunity to take Kelce in round 11. I think he should have jumped on that, and I don't think he should have thought twice about it. Like, if you think about it, Travis Etienne is your 5th running back. Is he really going to help you more than a potential, not breakout, but just value at starting tight end Travis Kelce when you already have the stack with Mahomes? I think he made a big mistake there passing on Kelce, and I could see him having to overpay to correct that mistake, because we all know Kyle Pitts is going to be on waivers by week 2. I also felt bad for him because at the other turn, again, Kincaid, Loveland, Kraft. Kraft was one of my favorite late round picks, and Cole, who already had Evan Ingram, takes Tucker Kraft, basically sniping anyone that wanted to wait, and then grab a good tight end there at the end. So kind of unusual for our league to wait this long for everyone to take their starters, and people taking a second, it's just kind of a wild card. Like you said, you don't know who's going to do that. There's really no logical reason to do it. I know Luke, one of the more astute drafters in our league, did it, and his thing was just like, hey, I thought Njoku was the best value, best player on the board. If I need to, I'll trade him, and trade him he did. We'll get into that later in the trade review segment. But Cannon says that he's not thrilled with Pitts, but gives him an upside opportunity that someone will drop a tight end soon enough. So basically his attitude is just going to be, I'll figure it out. Pitts is still young. He's still athletic. Maybe him and Penix connect early in the season. I can just ride out Pitts. Maybe it's like a post-hype sleeper situation. And again, if not, it's his round 13 pick. He can just cut with him, not feel too bad about it, move on to whoever the waiver wire hotness of weeks 1 or 2 are. So I don't hate it. I just think Kyle Pitts, it's one of those fooled you once, fooled you twice, fooled you 5 times at this point. I don't know how anyone can fall for Kyle Pitts in redraft in a 10-team league in 2025. So, all right, that's Cannon's roster. I think everyone came here to hear us shit on people and blow people. So we're getting in to our best and worst pick segment presented by Skinny Pop. What do you want to do first?
Let's be positive. Let's go to best picks.
Best picks. All right. Chat listeners, please put your best picks in the chat and we will ignore those because the only opinion that matters is the Showtime champions, 3-time champions of this league. The best proven drafters are going to tell you who the best and worst picks are from this draft. I will let you take the mantle here. Tell us your first best pick of the draft.
I'm going to go to the 5th round here and give a little shout out to Andrew Moore. This was an interesting sequence here in the 5th when Andrew sniped Will by trading in front of him to grab George Kittle. I like Kittle quite a bit. I think he has just as good of a chance to be in that Trey McBride range, and McBride went in the 3rd round, and Andrew gets George Kittle here in the 5th. Obviously, with the 49ers, they're dealing with a lot of receiver injuries, so Kittle could be a monster. And to get him in the 5th round and sniping Will, I thought that was a pretty shrewd move by Andrew.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think there was a top 3 at tight end this year, not a top 2. I think Kittle belonged in that conversation, and he gets Kittle a hefty 13 spots after McBride, who was also a good value. So could definitely prove to be a great pick there from Andrew. It was on my list. Now it's not because I'm deleting it, and I will go just a few picks in advance of that. I will also stay in round 5. Joshua Belford grabs Jaden Daniels, quarterback for the Washington Commanders at the 504. I thought that was one of the best picks of the draft by Josh. I was trying to trade up and make that happen myself. I cannot believe you morons let him fall this far in the draft. He is a top 5 locked and loaded mobile QB, rookie of the year, damn near MVP is a rookie season. One of the best rookie seasons, if not the best rookie season of all time. He runs, he throws. I don't understand how he falls to the 5th round. I was considering him back at the 3-4 turn. And when I saw he was falling to the 5th, I thought I have to come up and get him. Josh obviously snipes me. Luke's annoying ass figured out what I was trying to do, trading with Cannon. I saw that. I think it was Cole, Andrew, Will. 3 guys already had a quarterback at the turn. So I was like, all right, maybe I can come up and only trade up 4 spots with Cannon, take Jaden. Josh snipes me, trades up with Cole, takes him. I thought him coming off the board as QB5 there at the 504, just insane value after Burrow, over a round after Hurts. I think he has just as much, if not more, upside than those 2 guys. Jaden Daniels not going to have a sophomore slump. He's in for a massive year. Great pick, Josh.
I'm going to go back to the 4th round and give a little shout out to Will. Mike Evans of the 408, I thought was a really good value. I think Mike Evans is poised for just another great season. Chris Godwin's hurt. Jalen McMillan's out for half the year. They've got Ibuka, but he's a rookie, and so pretty much going to be leaning on Mike Evans, and he goes for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns almost every year. And to get that at the end of the 4th round as a wide receiver 2, I thought that was a really good value for Will in the 4th.
Yeah, I wrestled with the Higgins versus Evans thing at the 402. So to see him go a whopping 6-7 picks later, I would have taken him over JSN. I would have taken him over McLaurin, and I would have taken him over Marvin Harrison. I think Mike Evans, number 1 in Tampa Bay. Godwin dealing with the injury. He's in for a massive year. So don't hate that call by you. Didn't have it on my list, but don't hate the call. I will go to Joshua Belford. Come on down. One of the best picks of the draft. Braylon Allen, round 12. This kind of goes along with one of my worst picks, which we'll get into later on, but Braylon Allen could definitely be in a 50-50 timeshare, and he's got the goal line role potential. He's a big guy. He falls forward. Breece Hall just doesn't seem to be getting it done. I don't know how much the coaching staff there, the new coaching staff, Aaron Glenn, the guy, I don't know how much they like Breece Hall. He's not their guy. They seem to like Braylon Allen. He ran well in the preseason. And I just think getting someone that's going to be as involved as him on a run-heavy offense that late in the draft, like he's going around guys that are pure handcuffs. Algier, Ollie Gordon, Jerome Ford, Ray Davis, Cam Scattaboo. Allen is going to start the year getting more carries than all of those guys and might be just as talented. So I considered him at the 1109. The only reason I passed him up is because I didn't need the running backs. I had just gone with 2 running backs in the previous 3 rounds, and I really wanted to lock up Tyler Warren there. So really liked the pick there from Josh. I think Braylon Allen has a chance to surprise some people falling in the end zone 8 to 10 times this season.
Yeah, Braylon Allen was also on my list. Loved that pick. And I'm going to go back to Will's team. I realized making this list that I really like Will's team. Round 7, George Pickens. I feel like everyone in the room loved this pick from Will. Josh was trying to trade up for him. I was heavily considering him. I feel like Pickens is a fantasy darling this year, and a lot of people thought he deserved to go in round 6. And so to see Will get George Pickens in round 7, he has the potential this year with Dak and that offense to connect for a lot of touchdowns, and to get him there as a 4th wide receiver, that is insane value for Will. And I think a lot of people really loved that pick.
Yeah, I mean, that was at the top of my list right there below Jane Daniels. Round 7 for Pickens. There's almost no downside there. Like, you're not even drafting it. I mean, he did draft him as a starter, but as your 7th player off the board with that talent in is an offense as good as the Cowboys project to be, Dak's a great vertical thrower. I think if Pickens can just keep his head on straight, he is a lock for 1,107. And you're getting that in round 7. CeeDee Lamb is the alpha. He's going to take the coverage. He's going to run underneath and cause defensive coordinators hell. And then Pickens will get a lot of one-on-ones. Dak will chuck it up to him. They'll be down 15 in the 4th quarter because their defense blows, and Pickens is going to catch a lot of garbage time touchdowns. So loved the pick from Will. I think Pickens will be we'll look back and wonder why he didn't go in round 5. All right. I'm also going to go with a middle round wide receiver here. I thought Max got some solid value with Garrett Wilson at the 508. As the offseason and preseason unfolded, I actually started to sour on Wilson a little bit just with some of the stuff we've seen from Fields in training camp and in the preseason. But you just can't argue with the type of role and talent Garrett Wilson's going to have there at the 5'6" turn. We're talking about a guy that just eats 160, 170 target seasons for breakfast. He's super talented. The wide receiver 2 in New York. Can anyone name him? Can the chat get him? I'd give y'all 50 tries. I don't think anyone can name it. It's like, again, I don't know. They probably cut him today because there is not one. Garrett Wilson is the dude. He's the alpha. He played with Justin Fields at Ohio State. For whatever that's worth, there's some level of history and chemistry there. I think he will get fed. And, you know, if he goes around earlier at the 408, I'm not even bringing this pick up. I'm like, ho-hum, cool, whatever. The fact that you get him this late, I mean, that's just insane. I think it was as a 2nd flex, too. Garrett Wilson has the talent to be a round 2, round 3 guy. In fact, he has been in previous drafts. So to get a guy that's healthy, that got paid this offseason at the 508, I thought that was phenomenal value for Max.
Yeah, I actually had that on my list too. All right, now I'm going to go to Luke. I don't think we've really talked about any of Luke's picks, but he is our champion. We have to give him some props. I'm going to go to round 6 where Luke got DK Metcalf at the 609. And I really liked this pick. He mentioned when he took him, he's taking the number 1 for Aaron Rodgers, which historically has been a very valuable role in fantasy. The Steelers don't have any other wide receivers worth anything. And if Metcalf is just anything like the potential we've seen from him in the red zone And as an outside wide receiver, we should see Aaron Rodgers peppering him. And at the end of the 6th round, I can't really see a way that goes poorly. Some people don't love the Arthur Smith offense and think that Aaron Rodgers might be washed, but I feel like for at least one season, him and DK are going to combine a lot. And I really liked getting that value late in the 6th for Luke.
I didn't even write it down because I knew you were going to have it on your list, and I just wanted to hear you talk about it. I know you kind of got sniped there right before the 6-10. I know you wanted DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers freaking peppers his wide receiver 1, so could definitely be in for a high-volume season from DeKalen. We'll just see if he can stay upright and healthy with his diseased knee. All right, I am going to stick with the wide receiver position. We're going to go to round 9. No, I'm not talking about Khalil Shakir or Jaden Reed or Stephon Diggs. We are going back to the suck my dick well. Jordan Addison, I thought, was one of the better values of the draft. As we'll talk about later, we know suspensions do not scare me. And when he's on the field, he is the unquestioned number 2 wide receiver for a Kevin O'Connell offensive system that just farms passing yards, receiving touchdowns. They just cut KJ Osborne. I mean, I know they have like Jalen Naylor and Ty Felton and some other bums, but it's Jefferson and it's Addison. And you're telling me this guy was a first-round NFL draft pick. He was an absolute superstar. He's got all the talent in the world. He just needs to stop being a moron and doing things that get him in trouble. So I don't know. I just think the talent and the opportunity in the offensive system is too good to go this late in the draft in round 9. Great pick, Andrew. Jordan Addison will be a starter for you after the suspension in week 4.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. The suspension obviously raises some concerns, so I feel like that 8-9 area was about right. Okay. Let's get a tight end on the board. I don't think we've talked about I talked about Kittle, but I'm going to go to Jerry. I feel like, we got to throw Jerry a bone here in the best pick segment. We're going to feature him a lot in our next segment, but Jerry in round 8 took TJ Hawkinson. I really like TJ Hawkinson this year. He was my tight end 4 on my rankings. I think with the Addison suspension and with that passing offense in Minnesota, I think TJ Hawkinson is going to soak up a lot of targets a year removed from his knee injury. We've seen TJ Hawkinson be a top 3 tight end in fantasy. And as long as JJ McCarthy isn't just horrible, I don't really see a way it goes wrong for TJ Hawkinson this year. And to get him in the 8th round and a guy that you can probably just keep in your lineup every single week and not worry about it, I thought that was pretty good value for Jerry.
All right, quickly, I'm going to go with a 2-pack of Chiefs. I kind of already alluded to this earlier, but Patrick Mahomes, round 9, Travis Kelce, round 11, just too late for those guys. Those guys have been 2 of the better players of their positions of the last 5 years. I don't think Kelce is done yet, and I don't think Mahomes is just going to be this low-end QB1 for the rest of his career. I think he's going to have a lot of ups and downs. We've seen a few years of down, and I think we're going to see that come back up this year. I really like the values for both Mahomes and Kelce. Kelce lost weight. He just got engaged. He's going to have that Taylor Swift magic, that Taylor Swift energy with him on the field this season. Mahomes got the haircut. I'm feeling good vibes in Kansas City, and I think they both got a very cheap piece of that there with Mahomes and Kelce.
Yeah, I had Kelce on my list, not Mahomes, but yeah, I'm going to go back to Will's team again, man. I really liked a lot of Will's picks. DeAndre Swift at the 608. He was the top player on my board for a while in the 6th round. Roshan Johnson's hurt. Kyle Monangai is hurt. We saw it in that preseason game. DeAndre Swift's going to get every opportunity to be the bell cow for Ben Johnson in that offense. And to get that as an RB2 at the end of the 6th round, you could argue that he is just as valuable as a lot of the running backs that went in rounds 4 and 5. And to get him at the end of the 6th, I thought was phenomenal value for Will with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I didn't hate that pick at all. I actually had it on my list. Especially, I just wanted, when you have the build that Will went with, right? A hero RB approach. He goes Gibbs in round 1 and then just rattles off, what is that, 4 straight non-running backs: London, Allen, Evans, Sutton. A lot of times when you get to that 6, 7, 8 middle rounds, running back is really dried up. So to be able to grab someone like Swift as an RB2, just great work there from Will. And then again, Pickens in round 7 got his 6 and 7 turn was just incredible. All right, I'm going to stay in Chicago, and I'm going to give Cannon a little more credit here. I liked Rome Odunze in round 8. I think he's got a chance to be the Bears' number 1 wide receiver. Sorry, DJ Moore fantasy owners. I like Rome Odunze. I think he was good last year. He just didn't really get a chance to show much. The system sucked. Caleb sucked. I think this will be the Rome Odunze breakout year. I'm talking double-digit touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, and he's a good player. He's going to show it. Round 8 was a steal for Rome.
Yep, I had that one on my list for sure. I'm going to stay in that same range. He got Rome at the 802. I'm going to look a couple picks earlier at the 710 and give Josh a shout out. Jalen Waddle at the 710. There's been a lot of reports that I'm kind of buying into, that Waddle has looked really good in camp, kind of back to his peak self. And while I did take the chance on Tyreek Hill in the 5th, there's a chance Waddle's just as good, if not better than Hill. He could be the number 1 wide receiver for the Dolphins. And for Josh to get that kind of upside at the end of the 7th round, getting him after guys like Emeka Buka, a rookie, Jerry Jeudy, who we make fun of all the time, Ricky Pearsall, who's just all projection, Zay Flowers. Jalen Waddle, to me, has a chance to potentially be the number 1 Dolphins wide receiver, and to get that kind of upside at the end of the 7th round, especially for Josh, who, similar to what we just talked about with Will, Josh didn't even have a receiver 2 at that point. His receiver 1 was Malik Neighbors, and he had gone with quarterback, tight end, 3 running backs until then. And so to grab a guy like Waddle at that point solidified, in my mind, his wide receiver 2 position.
I'm gonna talk about my co-host here for a little bit. I'm gonna give you some love, Trey, there on the opposite turn as I'm gonna say Chase Brown was one of the better picks of the draft. I actually considered him 10 spots earlier at the 202. You grab him there at the 301. I had him over Bucky Irving, over Jonathan Taylor, over Devon Achane, over pretty much all those wide receivers as well. I think Chase Brown's in for a great season, and it takes some guts to double up like that on a team. You already had Jamar Chase, but I think the super stack, as long as those guys stay healthy, it's going to pay off for you. Chase Brown broke out at the end of last year. I don't see any reason why it should stop this year. I'm kind of all gas, no brakes with Chase Brown going into 2025. They didn't add anyone of significance. In fact, they cut Zach Moss. The only guys they have around him are bummy ass old, maybe some third down work, Samaje Perine, and then 7th round bum who hasn't shown shit in the preseason, Taj Brooks. So this is Chase Brown's backfield. He will be on the field for 70+% of the snaps. He will be catching passes from Burrow. He will be the guy plunging in to the from the 1 or 2 yard line when Jamar Chase and T. Higgins get them down there. So I'm thinking a massive season, massive volume from Chase Brown. Just stay healthy, Bengals, and you'll be great. Great pick there at the 301.
Yeah, I loved getting Chase Brown there over the offseason. I just fell in love with him. And yeah, you gave me a shout out. I haven't really given you a shout out yet. We're going to go to round 11. Tyler Warren. I feel like he was one of you and me's favorite breakout tight ends late in the draft. And to get him at the 11-12 turn, you waited on tight end. I feel like it paid off here. Tyler Warren was a stud at Penn State. He's looked really good in the preseason. Daniel Jones being announced the quarterback is going to be much better for him than Anthony Richardson. And it looks like from day one, he's going to be potentially the top target in Indianapolis. And I think he's someone that as a rookie, you are just going to be able to put him in and not even worry about tight end. And so to get him at the end of the 11th, I really liked that value for Tyler Warren for you.
All right. Are there any other best picks you want to talk about before we move on to worst?
I've got a couple honorable mentions. I'll just rattle off. We mentioned earlier, but Trey McBride at the 310 for Josh. I thought that was a good value, especially compared to Bowers. We also mentioned this one, but Jamison Williams to Cannon in the 6th, I thought was pretty good. Jordan Mason in the 9th to Max. I liked that a lot. I considered him at the 901, and to see him get all the way to 908. I like Jordan Mason this year.
I think that 3-pack that of Charbonnet, Mason, and Benson at the end of round 9, I think all 3 of those have the potential, if someone in front of them gets hurt, if if they emerge, all 3 of those have the potential to be like a lottery pick. You look back at the end of the year and go, wow, they got them in round 9.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's my honorable mentions. Did you have any for best picks anymore?
I was looking for something deeper. I mean, I do think like Tucker Kraft round 13 was a great pick. I don't love it. I don't love the fact that it was his second tight end. If he had just not taken Ingram and gotten Tucker Kraft in round 13, I would have actually liked it a lot more. But other than that, no, not really. Just kind of a bunch of slop here at the end of the draft. So, all right. Enough sucking each other off. We are moving on to worst picks of the draft. It is time to shit on some moron fantasy owners here, otherwise known as the Jerry and Cole segment. Just kidding. Love you guys. What were your worst picks of the draft?
Yeah, and I want to try to not just come after these people personally. I want to talk about why they made these mistakes, what they can learn from it. We want to be helpful here on the Showtime Fantasy Podcast. I'll take the low hanging fruit here. Let's just start it off. Let's have the Alvin Kamara conversation. Alvin Kamara at the 306 to Jerry. There was honestly, I don't know if you feel like this has happened in past years, but there was an audible gasp in the room when Jerry made this pick of Alvin Kamara. I feel like everyone was a little shocked here. I was expecting Kamara to go in maybe like the late 5th round, 6th round range. And to see him go off the board here at the 306 was shocking. I think really the main reasons I hate this pick are, yes, Kamara's been extremely consistent for fantasy, and if he's anything like he's been, then this is solid value. But the Saints have fallen off a cliff as a team. They just announced today they're starting Spencer Rattler, and we saw what the Saints looked like with Spencer Rattler at the end of last year, and it was a fantasy wasteland. Nobody was valuable, not even Kamara. It's just there's so many higher upside plays on the board in the 3rd round. If you told me Jerry got Kamara in the 5th round, I would say, okay, that's a fine, low end RB2. He's pretty safe to at least get some production. But the Saints could go, I think the Saints could go like 1-16 this year. I'm so low on them. And then how much longer are you going to trust a 30-year-old running back on a team with that situation? So I hated it. It seemed like everyone was surprised. Do you feel like I pretty much covered why it's a bad pick, or is there anything else you had against that Kamara pick?
No, I think you pretty much covered why. I kind of want to get into the how. How could this even happen? Do you think he printed off full PPR rankings? Do you think he was looking at the wrong year? Do you think he confused him for another running back with dreads like a Marion Hampton? What was Jerry thinking?
I think we have seen historically Jerry leans heavily on guys who have been great. And he does also he likes to pick guys who are proven year over year. And to your point, he might have just printed off some ranking sheet, maybe full PPR, wasn't quite thinking too much about the situation. And just like, it was a very much like name value fantasy pick. Like there wasn't really a lot of thought about projecting forward. Now, we shit on Jerry's picks last year a little bit. And he ended up having a renaissance going all the way to the playoffs. So maybe he'll prove us wrong, but I feel like this one was a rough one.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the headliners. It wasn't my worst pick of the draft, though. For my worst pick, I'm going to go to round 8, where Luke decided to take his pick and drop kick it into a sewer. Joe Mixon at the 804 made absolutely no sense. Not only is he hurt? We have had zero, zilch, nada, no positive news in regarding to his health from D'Amico Ryans, Adam Schefter, any beat writer. There has been nothing but vagueness and negativity about him for the last 3 months. And I understand Luke's overall philosophy of, hey, this guy was really good last year. If for some magical reason he's healthy, this is a steal. He's not healthy, so that's stupid. The guy is not healthy. We know he's not healthy. Maybe we didn't know exactly how bad, and maybe we still don't, but it's just not worth the risk. I was thinking coming into the draft, okay, Luke's ideal scenario is like a 3% chance, and him being gone for most of the year is like 97% chance. So it seemed like Luke either was just really delusional on the realistic chances of Joe Mixon being healthy, or he didn't fully understand the situation, or what. I mean, there were photos of him going to see specialists, orthopedic people. There had been rumors of setbacks. There had been talk of IR. The guy had not touched a football field in months. And the fact that D'Amico Ryans was refusing to even comment or give a timetable should have scared the absolute shit out of everyone, including Luke. And I don't think he was even worth a look until round 11. So Luke just lights a 8th round pick on fire here, takes him over Jaylen Warren, over Tyrone Tracy, over J.K. Dobbins, all running backs that will not only start for their team to begin the year, but will really contribute for fantasy. While Joe Mixon, now we've gotten the news post-draft that he's going to start the year on IR, which means he's guaranteed to not just miss the first 4 games. He can't even practice until that IR stint is up. So it's going to take him even a few weeks after that to ramp up and get himself back on the football field. By then, who knows what kind of shape the offensive line's in, what kind of shape he's in. Has Nick Chubb taken over? There are so many question marks here with Joe Mixon that I cannot fathom taking him really at all in this draft, but much less the 8th round. Horrible pick by Luke. This is one that if he gets the sacko this year, you could look back and say the Joe Mixon draft pick got Luke the sacko.
Yeah, this is one of the worst draft picks in the history of our fantasy league. I'm not really sure what Luke was thinking here. This was fantasy malpractice by Luke taking Joe Mixon in the 8th round. I hope all those sound bites make his end of year video, but in all seriousness, with Mixon,
wait, he's going to make a sacko video.
Like he's been sending this like text, like, oh, sometimes you gamble and you lose. But to me, I don't feel like what he thought he could get with
there's
Mixon
gambling and winning like blackjack, and then there's going and putting your entire hand on one number of roulette. That's what he did here with Mixon.
Right. And I don't even know what the ideal scenario was. Like he magically heals for week 1, but even at that point, it's probably an RBBC and he's coming off, he's not practicing. So no, everything you said, it made 0 sense. And I feel like Luke even said as much when he made the pick that he wasn't going to talk himself into this, which I don't even know why the devil on his shoulder was talking about Joe Mixon. Like nobody else was thinking about Joe Mixon at that point. Like to your point, I wouldn't have taken Joe Mixon. I probably wouldn't have drafted Joe Mixon. Like in round 16, I would not have picked Joe Mixon. And to see him go in the 8th round, that was absolutely shocking. And it's not often that by the time we record this episode, we've already got confirmation on one of the worst picks. So yeah, tough scenes there for Luke. I think he knew this segment was coming, but maybe he can bounce back. I mean, he's already traded for Austin Eckler, so he's kind of found some kind of running back depth. I'll mark Mixon off my list here, and let's go to round 6 here. Cole Walker, Breece Hall. Really didn't like this pick. Don't really understand it. I feel like it's pretty evident from everything going on in the Jets organization that it's a major RBBC, potentially 3-way with Braylon Allen looking even better than Breece Hall a majority of the time in preseason. There's been a lot of weird quotes about Breece Hall not really being in the coach's favor and wanting to kind of get out of New York. And he just really hasn't been the same player since his first couple years when he was explosive, young, and exciting. And to see him go in the 6th, at the beginning of the 6th round, ahead of guys like David Montgomery, who's a stalwart, DeAndre Swift, who has the backfield to himself, RJ Harvey, who's actually has upside, and a bunch of receivers that I would have preferred over him. I thought it was a bad pick by Cole, and not really sure if he hasn't been paying attention to any preseason or news, but I thought Breece Hall was more like an 8th round pick, not a 6th round pick.
Yeah, I had him on my list. The fall from grace for Breece Hall needs to be studied. I mean, this guy was a early round pick as recent as last year. He was like a top 5 dynasty startup pick a couple of years ago. First round running back in the NFL just has not worked out. His yards per carry has dropped every single season. He had 5.7 yards per carry in his rookie season, 4.4 the year after, and then last year dropped all the way down to 4.1. So his efficiency continues to decline. The touchdowns aren't going up. The volume's not going up. We could just see Braylon Williams take more and more from him. Hate the pick. I think he's going to be stuck in a committee on a bad offense the entire season. So like the pick from you, hate the pick from Cole. Breece Hall, bad draft pick at the 601. All right. I am going to go to round 5, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Xavier Worthy. Just felt early. I don't even hate Worthy as a player. I just didn't understand why he took him this high over Garrett Wilson, over Tedero McMillan, over Jameson Williams. I thought he was kind of in that JMO, Hunter, Ridley, Pickens tier, but actually at the end of it. Right. And that tier extended all the way into mid-round 7. Jerry takes Worthy in mid-round 5, right after guys like Evans, Devontae, like total stud alpha target touchdown monsters are just off the board, and you're going to take Worthy, who, I get it, 4.2 fastest combine time ever. Mahomes going to throw downfield more. I like the upside Rashee Rice suspension. I get it. I like the thought. It's just the cost that is too high. And I actually think he could have waited and taken Worthy at the very least in round 6. Maybe he doesn't fall all the way back around to him in round 7, but it's just too early for a guy that's kind of a one-trick pony at this point. He's a deep threat. We saw what he could do in garbage time in the Super Bowl and without Rice. And I guess the argument there could be, well, he'll be without Rice some this year. But there's just too many question marks, too many mouths to feed in that Chiefs offense for me to put my stamp on Worthy as a 5th round pick. Now, the bright side here for Jerry is that he has Justin Jefferson, locked and loaded stud, and then McLaurin just got paid. So that 4th round pick looks a little bit better as his wide receiver 2. So Worthy is a flex for him. So I guess you could argue maybe he has a little wiggle room not to work out, or at least not right away, and still be a good pick here. It was just too early for me. I didn't love the Worthy pick there from Jerry at the 506.
Yeah, Worthy was also on my list. I don't really think he was worthy of that pick in round 5.
Zing.
Let's back up to round 4. We haven't really had a worst pick up in that range yet. I'm going to go with Ken Walker at the 401 for Josh. Didn't really understand this pick from Josh. I feel like the drum beat is getting heavier for Zach Charbonnet. It's a potential 50-50 split, if not like 60-40. And I don't really know that the Seahawks offensive line is going to be good enough to support both of them. And not to mention, Ken Walker has a lot of injury history and almost never plays a full season. So on top of a potential 50-50, 60-40 split, offensive line question marks, injury history, I feel like he could have gone safer here. And I mean, at the running back spot, there wasn't a ton of options, but I would have just gone receiver. You took T. Higgins next. You see Mike Evans and Devontae Adams going in this round. I would have loved any of those guys over Ken Walker, and then you come back and get your running backs later. I just think Ken Walker was a bit of a reach there at the 401. I don't really think Ken Walker was going to go in the next few picks unless Josh, other than Josh taking him there. So, yeah, I got Ken Walker as a worst pick.
I'm going to disagree. This feels like sour grapes from you. You got hurt last year on your team. He's kind of dragged you down in several leagues. You traded him in Dynasty. We get it. You're out on Ken Walker. Doesn't mean you need to shit on solid picks here from Belfort at the 3-4. I think Ken Walker's in for a great season. The Clint Kubiak system is conducive to running backs. Ken Walker's got a good style. if he stays healthy, he'll be well worth beyond the 401 there. So I actually like the pick there from Josh. I think it was appropriate value, and he already had Derrick Henry, so this kind of adds a high upside RB2 for him with Ken Walker. So good pick there, Josh. Don't listen to Trey. He's a fucking moron. All right. My next worst pick of the draft, we're going to stay in round 4. Marvin Harrison Jr. from Max. Just didn't really love this pick. I'm not a Marvin Harrison guy. I wasn't last year when he was going in the freaking 1-2 turn, and I'm still lower than consensus now that he's dropped to like the 3-4. I don't think the Cardinals are using him the right way. I don't think he's as talented as everyone thought coming over to Ohio State. I don't think he's his dad. He didn't produce like him. Last year, Trey McBride seems to be the top target earner from Kyler. I'm not even a Kyler fan. So really, you're taking the number 2 misused receiver on a run-heavy offense with a bad throwing quarterback. And it's all adds up to a complete fantasy disaster when, again, you have guys like Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, proven, workhorse, stud, target monsters, touchdowns, everything. Marvin Harrison would need to take a massive jump from year 1 to year 2 for this pick to be worth it. I don't think he does that. Bad pick here for Max, even if it was his wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I had that one on the board. I think he has upside, but just not really worth the risk there at the 403. Let's go to your team. I haven't really talked about you in the worst pick segment. We're gonna go to round 6, where you reached for Rashee Rice at the 602. Yeah, I feel like you took a massive unnecessary risk here with Rashee, who is rumored to potentially be suspended anywhere between 6 and 8 games this year, and we don't really know exactly when it's going to happen. That court date is set for late September, but if it's an 8-game suspension handed down at that point and you're missing him for a majority of the fantasy year, then I feel like he's not worth a 6-round pick, maybe closer to an 8 or 9-round pick where you can just stash him on your bench during that time and still have really solid starters. I don't really feel like you calculated that risk correctly, reaching for him in the 6th. I feel like nobody else was going to touch him for a couple rounds with that question mark, and you just didn't need to do that when there was.
Yeah, Josh literally said he was going to take him in 2 picks after that. So.
Yeah, there's plenty of other guys on the board here. We've already talked about Jameson, George Pickens, Metcalf, guys like that you know are playing the full season, and you don't even have to worry about it, and they're going to produce similar numbers to Rashee Rice overall. So yeah, I don't really. We've kind of gone back and forth about this. I feel like you hope he gets you off to a good start, but then if he doesn't, you're kind of just stuck with him, and then nobody's going to trade for him. So I feel like it wasn't worth the risk here. I would have taken him in maybe around like 9, but I guess you like him in round 6.
Yeah, you're a dumbass. All right. Round 8. We already talked about one round 8 pick that got lit on fire on Joe Mixon. Let's talk about another one. Caleb Johnson, terrible pick. Caleb Johnson is the 3rd string running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, behind Jaylen Warren, behind Kenny Gainwell. He can't catch, he can't pass protect, and right now he's not even going to get carries. So don't really see him moving up the depth chart in a rapid enough pace to be worth it for fantasy. I actually think Caleb Johnson will be on waivers by week 4. Horrible pick here from Cole.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree here. I like Caleb Johnson a lot as a prospect, and I think pretty early in the season it'll be evident he's the best Steelers running back. So I know you and I disagree there, but I do think he'll have to wait a little bit to start him. But I'm going to stay in the 8th round. I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers from Andrew at the 809. Didn't really understand this pick from Andrew. Jacoby Myers, we kind of know what he is. He's just a boring slot receiver. They've since signed Amari Cooper just because they're not inspired by their receiving core. You've got Brock Bowers. You're going to be running the ball with Ashton Genty a lot. So what does that really leave for Jacoby? I don't think you're ever going to feel comfortable starting him, and he really doesn't have any upside. I feel like at this point in the draft, he could have grabbed a guy like I got after this with Matthew Golden, who actually has upside, or maybe a running back that you can potentially play at some point. But Jacoby Myers is a guy that you just plug in week 9 when you have 2 injuries and a bye week and you try to get 8 points. I don't really think he's worth taking in the 8th round. What did you think of Jakobi Meyers?
Wasn't on my worst pick list, but I didn't love it either. He's just, again, like you said, he's boring. He kind of is what he is. I think round 8 is fine. All right. Chuba Hubbard, 507. Luke Rapert, horrible pick here, especially as an RB2, an embarrassing pick. Chuba Hubbard's about to get blown off the field by Rico Dowdle. I know Chuba Hubbard helped Luke win a title last year, so he's got some affinity for him, but Chuba is a Jag. He's just a guy. He's not good. The Panthers' offense will be improved, but it's going to be run by Bryce and T-Mac. God, he actually took him over T-Mac. That is horrible. You took the far worst Panther. I know you were desperate for a running back at that point, but I would have rather had David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift. I mean, yeah, I will say running back was dried up at that point, so I get the reach, but Chuba is just not good at football. So bad pick there by Luke at the 507.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I kind of like Chuba there. He's a pretty solid RB2 in round 5. I'm going to go to round 7. I feel like we've kind of been destroying Cole's team, but I'm going to keep doing it here. Zay Flowers. I feel like it's a little bit too early here. The Ravens just don't really throw the ball that much, and they've got Rashad Bateman. They've acquired DeAndre Hopkins. They have multiple tight ends. They run the ball with Lamar and Henry in the red zone. Flowers doesn't score touchdowns. He's a pretty solid player, but for fantasy, to take him over guys like George Pickens, Ricky Pearsall, Jerry Jeudy, Abuka, Waddle, Adunze, I would have had any of those guys over Zay Flowers, and I'm not really sure what Cole was thinking here. Bad pick.
Again, another one kind of like, who did we just talk about? Jacoby. Kind of just like Jacoby. It didn't have it on my list. I just kind of thought it was fine value. I agree. I would have taken like Abuka, Pearsall, and Pickens over him pretty easily. So I guess in that sense, you could call it a bad pick, but I don't think Zay is going to like bottom out or anything as a 702 value. So, all right, I'm going to give a controversial one here. I'm going to say Trevion Henderson was one of my worst picks of the draft. It's not that I don't like Trevion. I actually really like his potential. I'm buying the preseason hype. I think in full PPR, I could see him being worth the 407 in half. I think the math, you're going to have a math problem here with Trevion. I don't know if he gets the touches or the touchdowns to push him up into this range. I think a lot of his value is going to have to come from big plays, and a lot of his value is going to have to come from PPR catches. We play in half. Those catches are worth literally 50% less. I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to have a breakout, but it just feels like you're drafting him here at his ceiling, and I don't want to do that with a rookie. He's getting a lot of hype. He's a great dynasty buy. He's great for next year, but right now, Ramondre Stevenson, as bummy and as bad as he is still the starting running back for this New England Patriots team. I think Ramondre will be the one plunging into the end zone. Trevion will be the third down back. He'll make some big plays, but I don't know if the volume will be there to prove him to be a consistent RB2 in fantasy. I think this was a reach by Andrew. I like the bravado. I like the aggressiveness. Don't like the spot for the player. So I'm going to say Trevion Henderson was one of my worst picks of the draft.
Yeah, I actually agree with you here. I didn't have it on my list, but I do think that he drafted him pretty much at his ceiling there at the 407. I'm going to pick our first quarterback. We haven't really had any quarterback shout outs in the worst picks. I'm going to go to Jerry here in the 7th round with Baker Mayfield. I like Baker Mayfield. He obviously had a good year last year, but you look at the injuries around him with Godwin and McMillan already down, and you're really just left with Evans and a rookie. And Baker is definitely due for some regression with his rushing and maybe touchdown percentage. And I just feel like he probably could have got Baker later. You look at some of the values of quarterbacks later in the draft, Mahomes in the 9th, like we talked about. You got Dak in the 12th. Dak in the 12th versus Baker in the 7th. There's so many running backs, receivers I would rather have in the 7th round. I think he could have waited and got Baker in the 9th or 10th, and I would have been fine with it. But it feels like he reached for Baker Mayfield when nobody else was going to pick him.
Yeah, I could see that just purely based on a value play. I do love Baker, so I have a hard time calling him like a bust or a worst pick, but I definitely see the argument there. All right, time to shit on you. I'm gonna talk about a couple of picks from you, pretty much all the way from round 9 to round 13. I thought you kind of took a shit and put it up on the board. Let's start it with J.K. Dobbins. It was just too early. The guy's ADP was in like round 12, and he just can't stay healthy, but you can't quit Dobbins. Not really sure what you were thinking there with Dobbins. At the 10-11, you decided to go with Eckler and Scadaboo. Eckler is washed. Scadaboo is hurt. And you could have taken ETN, Brian Robinson. Okay, not Brian Robinson. You could have taken Braylon Allen. You could have taken, I don't know. I mean, you could have taken anyone but those bums. Not really feeling Scadaboo unless it's some sort of a keeper dynasty league. It's so hard to come off pretty much missing all of training camp as a rookie, and hamstring injuries can linger. So hate that pick. And then the 2-pack of tight ends you decided to go with at the 12 and 13 literally made me want to puke. I thought you made a mistake. I thought you picked the wrong names when you went up there. I thought you were going to go for Tucker Kraft, Kyle Pitts, Jake Ferguson was available, but no. You went for Dalton Kincaid and Colston Loveland, two guys that do they have some upside? Sure, but definitely not surefire startable options at tight end. And again, as we will talk about in Trade Review, you've already bailed on this plan completely. So I think that kind of validates my worst picks here. Yeah, literally rounds 9 through 13, I thought you bageled the shit out of all 5 of those picks. So.
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with some of what you said there, especially the tight end strategy and Austin Eckler. Yeah, Scadaboo, I kind of have some buyer's remorse there with Scadaboo maybe. But, I feel like rounds 9 on, who really cares? But I say that and I'm about to shit on some late picks here. So let's go to round 10, actually. I feel like we haven't talked about Josh too much here in the worst picks, but Quinshon Judkins at the 10:01. Not really sure.
I didn't realize this was a college fantasy draft.
Yeah, not really sure if you thought this was Dynasty or something, but Quinshon Judkins still not signed by the Browns. We've been getting some hype pieces about Dylan Sampson, Jerome Ford. So even if at some point Quinshon Judkins gets a contract before the season, I could see it being a month or two before he even really touches the field. And then at that point, he's definitely on the waiver wire. So maybe you take a shot on a guy like this around 15 and see if he gets signed. But the 10:01 was actually still pretty early with some like Bill Krosky, Tank Bigsby,
Bill Krosky,
ETN. Like there's guys on the board here that he could have had. Javonte Williams, who's going to be getting touches in week 1, and I just don't really feel like there's any upside to the Quinshon Judkins situation unless like he's gonna drop him. He's going to be dropping Quinshon Judkins, so it's like it's just a wasted pick here. The 10:01.
I'm gonna go to Cole's team here. I did not like the Khalil Shakir pick in early round 9.
Yeah, that was on my board.
Sure, you could argue that when he's healthy, he's probably the top target earner for Josh Allen, but he's got a high ankle sprain. Keon Coleman has been the talk of camp. That offense likes to spread it around. That offense likes to run the ball. Shakir's not a touchdown guy. Shakir's not a big play guy. He is a PPR slot late round deep league merchant that you could have gotten round 12. Horrible pick here from Cole.
Completely agree. I had that on my list, and I've only got one more worst pick on my board. I didn't want to look too much into those later rounds just because at this point it's kind of we're trying to do a guessing game. But I'm gonna call out Andrew here. Luther Burden at the 12:09. Didn't love this pick at all. We've kind of seen that Olamide Zaccheaus is definitely running ahead of Luther Burden as well as DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. So I mean, I don't even really see Luther Burden touching the field much in week 1, maybe like 1 target or 2 targets at the most. And then at that point, you're probably just dropping him for whoever's on the waiver wire. I know it's the 12:09. I know who cares, but I just feel like Luther Burden is a nothing burger and you're going to drop him. So didn't really like that pick from Andrew.
I disagree. I think that's late enough that who cares what his role is in week one. He's like your fifth bench player, and he's a high upside rookie. You could have the slot role for Ben Johnson as early as week 3. So I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Okay. All right, I've got a couple more I'll rattle off here. DJ Moore from Cole in round 5. This just kind of goes hand in hand with my best pick, Rome Odunze. I think those guys are going to be much closer in production this year. I think he took DJ Moore a little too early. I would have liked to see guys like Jameson, Hunter, Ridley Pickens, Pearsall all over him. Aaron Jones in round 7, again, kind of pairing that with our best pick segment where we talked about Jordan Mason. I think it's going to be much closer split a la Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, maybe even 50-50. Jordan Mason's younger. He's more explosive. Aaron Jones has struggled to stay on the field in recent years. It's not horrible. Like round 7 for Aaron Jones isn't god-awful. I just didn't love it. Chris Godwin, round 10 for Jerry. I just think you're drafting an injured player who I think is going to start on IR and miss at least the first month of the season. Will said he has escaped the worst pick segment so far. And no more William McCombs. Mark Andrews makes my worst pick list. I just think he's washed. I would rather have Kraft. I'd rather have Warren. I'd rather have Kelsey. And you took Mark Andrews over all of those guys. I just don't understand what is appealing about Mark Andrews at this point. He is old. He's slow. Likely is right on his tail. I mean, maybe he can catch some touchdowns, but the days of him getting like 80 yards are over. So I thought Mark Andrews was a bad pick. And then my last bad pick, I'm going to go to you, back to the U well here. It's just too easy. Tyreek Hill at the 501. Miami is headed for straight up disaster land. Mike McDaniel is going to get fired. Tua's brain is going to turn into jello. I think this whole offense is going to combust before our very eyes here in 2025. The vibes are horrible. His teammates hate him. He's washed. He's slowing down. He could retire midseason and pull an Antonio Brown. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Tyreek Hill is headed for the waiver wire by week 8.
All right. Are we going to head into our ranking of the teams?
Yep. So that was your best and worst pick segment presented by Skinny Pop. Now we are to our roster rankings where we will tell you who has the best post-draft roster. Now, this is not our preseason predictions. We're not telling you who's going to make the playoffs. We're not telling you who's going to make the sacko. That's next week. All we are doing here is who had the best draft. So as we do every year, we're going to go up from 10 to 1, reveal our roster rankings. We went through these with a fine-tooth comb. We left no draft pick unturned. We watched film. We consulted Chat GPT. We've got y'all's opinions that I will read as we go through the teams, but let's just start it off, Trey. Who was your worst 10th best roster in the league?
Jerry. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he was featured pretty heavily on the worst pick segment, so this shouldn't be a surprise, but I just didn't really love his team at all, honestly. I'm looking at his roster right now. A lot of risk. A-Chain, calf injury, Kamara, horrible offense. Worthy, we've already talked about the risks there. And then I didn't love his bench. Jaden Reed. It's almost like Jerry didn't know any news or injuries. Jaden Reed, he's in a walking boot. Chris Godwin out for multiple weeks. Brian Robinson is now on another team. I already talked about Baker, seemed a little early. So honestly, I kind of hate everything about Jerry's team. I mean, really, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, McLaurin are like the pieces I really like at their value. And 2 of them are Vikings. I mean, Dave Montgomery was fine as well, but usually I like Jerry's team a little more just because he's a ranking slave, but this was poor work from Jerry. One of his clear worst rosters. I feel like he was a little embarrassed at the draft, trying to be defensive and talk about how his team's going to prove us wrong. But I don't know. This was a pretty easy worst roster for me.
Yeah, I also had Jerry at 10. I don't want to kick the guy while he's down, but the guy, he just didn't draft a good team here. He doubled up on Vikings with a pretty much rookie quarterback with Jefferson and Hawkinson. Achan's hurt. Kamara was a reach. Baker was a reach. Worthy was a reach. Just reaches everywhere. Pretty bad. And then the bench is just, I mean, his bench, he's just full of unusable guys here. Reed is hurting bad. Godwin's hurt. Brian Robinson, like you said, is just a handcuff at this point to CMC. I don't really see much redeeming quality here from Jerry's team. I think he's a lock for the Sacko. He might average less than 100 points per game. I think this is going to be an utter disaster for Jeremiah in 2025.
All right, who'd you have at 9?
All right, my 9th best team was Mr. Cole Walker, the matchup king. I don't know if it was the Modelos or the fact that he was away from his kids for the first time in a while. It just seemed like at some point in the draft, it all fell apart for Cole. I thought it started out okay, right? You grab Bijan, A.J. Brown. I loved the Ladd McConkey pick. You can't complain about Hurts. And then that's kind of where it started to fall apart there after the first 4 rounds. He was doing a lot of trading, moving back and forth. You have to wonder if he was maybe getting manipulated a little by the smarter players in our league. He trades back into the 5-6 turn, and then that's, again, we talked about it. DJ Moore, Breece Hall, Zay Flowers, Caleb Johnson, Khalil Shakir. Pretty much every pick from round 5 on was awful. So he's going to need to rely on those top 4 guys so much. He's going to need like multiple Hurts to A.J. Brown touchdowns per game. He's going to need a breakout from Ladd McConkey, and he's going to need Bijan to be the best player in fantasy to even give this roster a chance at avoiding the Sacko playoffs. I think he's going to have to make some crazy trades, waiver wire. He's going to have to get desperate early in the season. I think he starts 0-2 and then starts scrambling, trying to just claw his way to irrelevance. I don't think he gets there. I mean, even like Brent, he's taking a kicker in round 11. I don't know what he was doing in this draft, but he pretty much embarrassed himself in front of his friends. I'm going to go with Cole here, number 9.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought Cole and Jerry were very clearly the 2 worst teams to me, like not even close. This honestly made me feel dumb for picking Cole high in that who I would want to draft for me thing we did, because this was absolutely terrible from Cole. To your point, I don't know if he just wasn't prepared. Like he kept trading down, like, cause he just had no idea what he wanted to do. And then he still took bad play. Like he didn't scoop up any value there. Yeah, didn't like Cole's team at all. I had him at 9. My number 8, I don't know if you're going to agree with me here, but I got Luke Rayford at number 8 here, my number 8 team. Didn't really like Luke's team at the end. I thought he had a lot of solid picks, but I'm not enthusiastic about Bo Nix as a quarterback. And he's his only quarterback, and so he's really reliant on Bo Nix to take a second-year leap, which I don't really believe in. Chuba Hubbard, he's kind of boring as an RB2. McCaffrey has a lot of risk in round 1 with his injury history. Obviously you can't really hate on Sun God, Devontae, Brock Bowers, and I like Metcalf a lot too, but Jerry Jeudy, kind of a putrid flex. And then we already talked about, he lit his 8th round pick on fire with Joe Mixon. He's got some solid bench depth at running back with Charbonnet, Bigsby, and Austin Eckler, but honestly, I just feel like his team wasn't horrible, but of all the mid teams, I just kind of thought I would want his team the least amount, with Bo Nix, honestly, is kind of my biggest hang up here. So I don't know. You might have liked his team a little bit more, but I had Luke come in here at 8.
I had Luke at 7, still firmly in the Sacko. I think he has the worst starting quarterback outside of CJ Stroud, and he didn't take a second one. So his backup option is going to be turning to waivers. And then I think having Jerry Jeudy as a starter is pretty embarrassing in a 10-team league. Maybe if this was like a 16-team league, you could get away with Jerry Jeudy, but we have 10 teams in this league, so bad pick there by Luke. I think he is, again, riding the 2024 coattails of Chuba Hubbard. The days of Chuba are dead. They're over. This is not Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard will not produce for fantasy this year. Mixon, again, waste of a pick, and then he's got like multiple Browns and Texans scrubs on his bench. So he's putting a lot on McCaffrey to be McCaffrey, and if he is, McCaffrey could be enough to pull him to Cancun, not the playoffs. God, no. This roster is not going to the playoffs. Brock Bowers has no hair at this point, so not really. Devontae Adams is dealing with a old washed quarterback, and he's kind of old and washed himself. So yeah, I think Luke is headed. He's got a one-way ticket to Sackoville here. Maybe at some point mid-season he can trade McCaffrey for other startable options because he'll need to fill out the roster with some people that will score points. I think he just kind of overthought some things in the draft, and I think he was on such a high after taking McCaffrey that he just stopped trying pretty much. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy and Joe Mixon was maybe the worst 7-8 turn in the history of the Blind Squirrels draft. So I got Luke at number 7, not as low as you, but definitely a Sacko team.
All right, so that means who did you have at number 8?
Number 8, we're going with the trusty Oracle. I don't actually hate some of the values he got. We talked about it, right? Jordan Mason, round 9, Garrett Wilson, round 5. Love Nico Collins. He's a stud. Puka Nacua, round 2, not bad. Travis Kelce, round 11. Solid pick there. But when you step back and look at the totality of this roster, I mean, some of the things that stick out to me in the negative are you've got CJ Stroud as your quarterback. And when I texted Max to ask about his team, I mean, his response is telling, right? I asked everyone in the league, I said, what was your best pick? What was the pick you could end up seeing yourself regret? And for the pick he could see himself regret, he says, Nico, if Stroud sucks again. Dude, you took Stroud as your starting quarterback. So the fact that you're even opening up the possibility of Stroud sucking again proves the point that your quarterback situation is not good. I think the Hampton pick, I didn't hate it in the moment, but now that Najee's health is looking better, I could see that backfield being a little muddier. And the fact that he's your RB1 is kind of scary. If you have Hampton as an RB2, I think there's enough upside there to justify it. Hampton and Pacheco as your top 2 running backs is terrifying. And I know he's got the Vikings both on the bench, but I think that could be kind of a 50-50 no fantasy win wash. I didn't like the Marvin Harrison pick. I think this team has limited upside, and I just think Max did what he always does. He was at home. He was with his cats. He was drafting with a magazine. He was probably listening to Spencer Brown for some of this garbage. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's enough upside and firepower on this roster. I have him at number 8.
Yeah, I had him at number 7, so it sounds like you and me just flipped him and Luke. Agree with what a lot of you said. CJ Stroud's my biggest hang up here. I don't think this is like a get the Sacko team just because he has some really solid receivers and he built out his depth okay. I just, unless he fixes quarterback, I'm pretty worried about the upside of his team. And yeah, do you want to real quick? I know you had gotten some text responses from the league. Do you want to back up and start with Jerry and work our way, and then we'll kind of move on to number 6 on the list? But what did Jerry say about his team?
Yeah, sure. So let me pull up Jerry's text. So just kind of text everyone in the league, said, give us a God damn it, stupid old Jerry's phone. Now I gotta text his fucking iCloud. All right, let me go find this stupid J. Ojeda 1998. All right. So I texted everyone and I said, what was your best pick? A pick you could see yourself regretting. Best pick by someone else in the draft. Worst pick of the draft. Favorite roster other than your own. Worst roster. And then favorite draft weekend moment. So a lot in here. Jerry was pretty...
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, you cut out after you started talking about what his response was.
All right, sorry. All right. So he thought his best pick was David Montgomery because of the good value as a number one flex. He said the pick he could see himself regretting, Xavier Worthy, if he does not take a step this year like he's hoping.
Wait, who was his favorite pick? Sorry.
Montgomery.
Okay.
And chill out. All right. His best pick of the draft by someone else was actually Tyreek Hill by you at the 4-5. And then his worst pick was either Judkins or Mixon, which we highlighted in the segment. So favorite roster other than his own was Cannons, and then worst roster was Max. And then he said his favorite draft weekend moment was cooking us in golf in his first outing. Yeah, that was Max's first time ever. Jerry's first time ever playing golf, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so now let's look at what was Cole. Did Cole text back?
Cole did text back. I actually got 100% response rate on this in the league, which is rare for blind squirrels. So Cole said his best pick was Ladd, but he thinks the Shakir pick could end up being underrated. I'm not sure about that, buddy. His least favorite or picks he could see himself regretting are Breece Hall and DJ Moore. Oh, shocker. And then his favorite pick by someone else was Pollard or Ibuka. And then his least favorite were Mixon and Judkins. His favorite roster other than his own was Will's. And then his least favorite teams were Jerry or Josh. And then Cole's favorite moment from the draft weekend was Trey thinking rats weren't mammals. Yeah, that was bad.
Okay, and then Luke's text.
All right, let me pull up this novel. This thing could literally get published. All right. His favorite pick was trading up for Bowers at the 302. He basically said it's a repeat of what he did for Achane last year. He was his 12th overall pick, and he would have considered him in round 2 if things went different, and he got him in round 3. A pick he could see himself regretting, he said Mixon, LOL. Best pick of the draft by someone else. He threw out a couple. Andrew with Kittle was his favorite, and then honorable mentions McBride, JMO, Pickens, Ibuka, and Tyler Warren. Worst pick of the draft, he said Cole's rounds 5 through 10, Kamara, Jaden Reed, and Ray Davis. Favorite rosters other than his own, he had Will. Favorite rosters other than his own were Will and Cannon. And then worst rosters, Jerry and Cole. Favorite draft weekend moment was Cannon and Ty haggling for price on the Circle the Wagons trading cards.
And then we already read Max's text. Okay. Oh, wait. What was the rest of Max's text? I think we just got his best and worst pick, maybe.
Yeah, his favorite of his own was Garrett Wilson in round 5. And his favorite picks of other people were Bill Krosky Merritt for Andrew and Swift with Will. His least favorite pick was Saquon because in parentheses he said he's due to be hurt. Favorite roster Will, least favorite Trey, and then I don't even really understand this one. He said his favorite draft moment was Luke lying about him offering me a lot for Jameson Williams.
That's so funny.
I don't even know what he's referring to. Was it something from last season?
I guess so. Oh, that's good. Okay, so all right, we're all caught up, and now we're to number 6 on our list. I've got Andrew here at number 6. I feel like he has a pretty mid team. Let's see. Let me find his team here. Obviously, the quarterback tight end combo is elite with Lamar Jackson and George Kittle. Hard to beat that. But his running backs are pretty high risk with Bucky and Trevion. We kind of talked about that. Love CeeDee Lamb, but it's mostly the flexes for me. Jacoby Myers, Jawan Jennings, he has in right now. Obviously, he's got like Addison on the bench, Tony Pollard on the bench, who, Pollard should see a bump with Spears going out, but really just don't. It's just very mid. Like Lamar and Kittle are such stalwarts at the onesies that you don't think his team's going to be bad. but I don't really see a ton of upside here other than that. It was very, very mid to me. Like, I just looked at this roster. I was like, yeah, pretty good, but I don't really see him winning the league with this roster. What did you think?
I also had Andrew at 6, like you said, just kind of one of those mid, definitely destined for Cancun type teams. It's tough. I wanted to rank him higher because of that Lamar Kittle combo, and I love CeeDee Lamb, and I'm actually a Bucky guy, but I think it's very top heavy, and then the rest of his roster, there's just so many holes I can poke. Trevion is an RB2. Jennings, who's hurt and holding out, as a flex. Jacoby should be a bench player, not a flex. Addison suspended, and the rest of his picks are just unplayable guys that'll be on waivers. I think the one potentially redeeming pick he has is Tony Pollard. We got the news today that Spears is going to go on IR. So if he can get off to a good start this year riding Pollard, then I think maybe you could buy some time till Addison gets back from suspension or Jennings gets healthy or signs a contract. So it's going to be tough for him. I think he's going to kind of need Lamar and Kittle to carry him with that positional advantage, Bucky and CeeDee Lamb to be his studs. And then Trevion Henderson, talk about a make or break player. Trevion Henderson, if he hits, it completely turns everything around for Andrew, but I don't really have a lot of faith in that happening. So I have Andrew as my number 6 team. In terms of Andrew's answers to the questions, he says his best pick was trading up in the 5th to snipe Kittle from Will. He said he thinks there's a huge drop-off after the top 3 tight ends this season. He said his worst pick was taking Pollard over Pearsall, Igbuka, and Rome. He said Pollard was the end of a running back tier for him, and the last running back he felt even decent about having is a true RB3. He thought there was a chance Pearsall or Igbuka would make it back to him in round 8, but unfortunately our league is just sharper than most ADP and mocks, which I agree with. And then he said he likes the floor of Pollard, but he thinks the ceiling of his wide receivers could make him regret that pick. His favorite pick by someone else was Trey McBride at the end of round 3. And then he also liked Cole trading back for Ladd McConkey. And then he said the steal of the draft was Jaden Daniels in round 5 by Josh, which I agree. His worst picks were Kamara and Baker Mayfield. And then he said all of Cole's picks in rounds 5 through 10. His favorite roster other than his own was Will's, and his least favorite would be Jerry or Ty. LOL. And then he said his favorite moment of the weekend, which I guess you could speak to a little bit better than me, was he said the hole we birdied playing golf where Josh crushed the drive. I threw a dart to like 5 feet and Will drilled the putt, and Trey brought the vibes. He said it was the perfect team scramble hole.
Yeah, no, this was like probably the best drive I've ever seen from anyone in our group. Andrew, or was it he said Josh crushed the drive, or was it him?
Yeah, he said Josh.
Okay, no, yeah, Josh hit it perfectly straight. Andrew literally put it to 5 feet, and our vibes were absolutely high because we had just taken a bogey, I think. So that was definitely turning the vibes around there. Okay, so that's Andrew at number 6. Who do you have at number 5?
Yeah, this is where I landed with your roster, actually. Number 5. There's a lot of things I like about what you did, and there's a lot of things I didn't. The things I liked, the Bengals super stack. Now, I still think you should have taken Jaden when he was there at the 4-5 over Burrow, even with the stack. Could I be wrong about that? Sure, but I just prefer Daniels. And then I like Jonathan Taylor, the 2-3 turn. Now, I will say I did make these rankings before the Njoku trade. I'm not going to move you up, though. I still think this is where you belong. I am not a Tyreek Hill believer, so I don't think you have a good wide receiver, too. And I am also not understanding why J.K. Dobbins is a starter. And then you have a corner at your other flex. So, I think you have some intriguing pieces, right? Travis Hunter, Ridley, Golden, Dobbins. I think your team, other than the Bengals, lacks star power. I think you're too reliant on Cincinnati. On the weeks that Cincinnati is on bye, someone's hurt, bad matchup, bad day. The last couple of years, they haven't even woken up till like week 3 or 4 of the season. So I think you're just overly reliant on the Bengals. And it's not because I don't like the Bengals, it's because I don't like the rest of it, that I think the Bengals are actually going to do 120% of what you're expecting to give you the same fantasy output. But, I think you're the 5th best team. I don't think you're a playoff team. I think to get to the top 4, you need to pull off a couple of trades or a good waiver.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do have myself at number 1, and we'll kind of get there, but that's just kind of a tradition we have every year. I could see some of the risks with my team. I do think Tyreek Hill in the 5th round is just worth taking that risk. He's been an absolute star in his career, and if he has anything left, it'll be well worth that pick. And then I think you had said some people didn't like the Travis Hunter pick. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's generational talent, and he's going to play mostly offense. The concerns about him playing defense, I feel like, are overblown. And then I really like Calvin Ridley with Cam Ward. J.K. Dobbins is only in my lineup for week 1. And then I will say my depth has taken a hit. But my biggest concern coming out of the draft was tight end, and I already have Njoku to kind of fill that concern of Kincaid originally. So I really like my team, but I could see how someone wouldn't, because I'm definitely someone who likes to go for my guys. And if I don't really look at ADP or try to follow that kind of stuff. So if someone doesn't like my players, then I could obviously see why they would have me lower. Okay, so that was number 5. You had me at 5. And now I will talk about who I had at number 5, which was Joshua Belford. The Ugly Ducklings came in at number 5 for me. I liked a lot about what Josh did. It's very similar to how I feel about Andrew's team. Strong quarterback tight end combo here with Jaden Daniels and Trey McBride. Probably right up there with Andrew as one of the top 2 combos of onesies. And then Derrick Henry and Malik Neighbors was a great start as running back and wide receiver 1. But I already talked about what I don't love about Ken Walker at running back 2. Jalen Waddle, while I liked the pick, he is still one of the weaker wide receiver 2. So I think he's weak at running back 2, wide receiver 2. And then at flexes, he's got really risky players like RJ Harvey and Deebo Samuel, where he's really projecting roles for these guys in their new offenses. And then his bench really doesn't have anyone that you can plug and play. We already talked about Judkins was lighting a pick on fire. I don't like Stephon Diggs at all. I like Keon Coleman and Braylon Allen, okay, but I don't know that they're guys you can actually play early in the season. So I liked his first 4 picks, I believe it was. 4 out of his first 5 picks I thought he smashed. But after that is where I get concerned about his depth, and that's why I have him sitting here at 5.
Yeah, I've got Josh at number 4, so just 1 spot higher than you. It was hard for me to rank him much lower in this just because of the value he got in McBride and Daniels. He picked up 2 elite onesies and didn't have to trade near. God, fucking shut the fuck up. All right, you talk. I'm going to mute my mic and figure out this fucking dogs.
Okay. Yeah, so as Ty was saying, the value on Jaden Daniels and Trey McBride was absolutely elite for Josh. Jaden Daniels, he got as the 5th quarterback off the board in the 5th round. Trey McBride, he got at the end of the 3rd round, much longer after Brock Bowers. And that's just elite value from the onesies. And when you have those 2 elite onesies, what it does is it allows you to kind of mix and match with your depth at running back and receiver, play the waiver wire a little better. And then being at the 10-11, he actually was able to take advantage by taking Derrick Henry and Malik Neighbors, which a lot of people liked both of those guys in the 1st round. And so he basically has 2 first-round picks along with those elite quarterbacks and tight ends. And so while we might be able to poke holes in guys like Kenneth Walker, Waddle, Harvey, Deebo Samuel, he really just needs to kind of piece those positions together and get enough contributions around his studs. And Josh's floor is very high, because when you have those absolute stud first rounders and a great quarterback and tight end, then really that just gives you like you're not going to get the sacko. Now I think the question is he going to be able to piece a championship team around those stalwarts? And that's where I am not sure about this for Josh.
Yeah, I think Waddle as a wide receiver 2 is scary, and then Debo and Harvey as starting flexes is terrifying. But the top end talent on this team is there. Neighbors, stud. Henry, stud. Ken Walker, if he just stays healthy, stud. And then he's got the Daniels McBride combo. So he kind of needs someone to surprise here. He needs Debo to not be washed. He needs Harvey to have a rookie breakout. He needs Keon Coleman. He needs that hype to be real. He needs Braylon Allen to really be in more of a 60-40. So I like Josh's start. He needs to figure out the finish, but I think even those top 5-6 players puts him at number 4 for me.
All right, so you had me at 5, Josh at 4, and I had Josh at 5, myself at 1. So let's go to your number 3.
William McCombs, welcome to the Blind Squirrels podium. I thought Will crushed this draft. I mean, he just kind of sat where he was. He made no trades. He just soaked up the value. Jahmyr Gibbs, absolute superstar running back in round 1. He went hero RB, and then he goes London, Josh Allen, best quarterback in the league. Mike Evans, great value. This is wide receiver 2. Cortland Sutton, an alpha in his own right. Wide receiver 3. Pickens. God, the Pickens pick was so good. This is second flex in the 7th round. DeAndre Swift is his RB2. There's no weakness here. That's when I look at his team, I think, especially as we rise on Swift and understand what that situation is going to look like, there's not really a weakness here. I think his only potential weakness is tied in, but you can figure that out off waivers or whatever. I think even his first player off the bench with Tracy, a starting running back, explosive second-year player, I like that. Chris Olave is gross as a wide receiver 5, but who cares when you have Evans, London, Sutton, and Pickens? I mean, this is just a great team all around. You've got the stud quarterback. You've got the stud running back. You've got a very good foursome of starting wide receivers. I just think he'll have to manage the roster to get there, but I think coming out of the draft, he's definitely a top 3 roster for me.
Yeah, and I had Will as my next highest team at number 4, so I completely agree. I think the build was very smart, taking the stud running back and then just gobbling up value at wide receiver. London, Evans, Pickens, Sutton, like they're all guys that he can just kind of play every single week. And then you come back and you grab DeAndre Swift and Tyrone Tracy to mix and match at running back 2. And then in the middle of all that, oh, by the way, you got Josh Allen, who is amazing. And so, yeah, to your point, Mark Andrews, we'll see. But even early in the year, if Likely is hurt, I actually really like Andrews at tight end there. So, yeah, I loved Will's team. I completely agree. This was great work from him. Let's go back to Josh. Did Josh respond to your text?
He did, yeah. His favorite pick of his own was Daniels. His least favorite pick of his own was Judkins. His favorite pick of someone else was Pickens from Will. His least favorite was Kamara with Jerry. His favorite roster is Will. Least favorite, Jerry. And his favorite moment of the draft weekend was reviewing the draft for an hour and a half, 10 seconds after the draft ended. And he said Avalon as well.
And then what did Will respond, I guess?
Yeah, Will responded as well. His favorite pick of his own was Drake London in the 2nd. He thinks that if he clicks with Penix, he's got wide receiver 1 overall upside. Kind of a crazy endorsement there from Will. He said he's got extreme volume and red zone monster. His least favorite pick was going Evans in the 4th and missing out on Kittle by a pick. He says he probably could have gone Kittle in round 4, and then maybe Evans could have fallen back to him in round 5. That's definitely one we'll kind of look at throughout the season and see if that comes back to bite him. His favorite pick of someone else was actually Terry McLaurin in the 4th, and then Joe Mixon is his worst. His favorite roster besides his own Cannon, his least favorite is Max, and then his favorite moment from draft weekend was Avalon. Avalon was electric.
All right.
Trey was the new Merlin.
Didn't play it very well. I got caught multiple times. But either way, we will be in the top 3 of my rosters at this point, and I believe this will be your number 2. We've got Captain Colonel Cannon hitting my top 3, your top 2 here. We seem to always kind of like Cannon's draft. He's just kind of a experienced fantasy draft at this point. Doesn't really make a lot of mistakes, but really, the only holes I can poke here are tight end. Clearly, Kyle Pitts. We've already talked about that. He's going to have to figure that out. Mahomes is a lower end fantasy guy, so really the onesies are the concern here for Cannon. But if you look past the onesies, he built such a balanced, deep roster. I mean, you look at his starting lineup right now: Saquon, stud RB1; Kyron, stud RB2; BTJ, stud wide receiver 1; JSN, great wide receiver 2. And then right now he's in the flex. He's got James Conner and Igbuka, who are great. And then you look down at his bench and he has Jameson and Roma Dunze as bench options that he can play at flex. So that flexibility he has to play guys at flex, at running back and receiver, is just going to really carry him. And I even liked Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne. Like, his depth is amazing to me. It's really just, does Mahomes bounce back, and does Kyle Pitts give him anything? Because I think he really nailed the running back and receiver strategy in depth.
Yeah, pretty much echo everything you say. Cannon had a good draft, which I hate admitting, but this kind of gives me credence. I took him number 1 overall, and if I could have someone else draft my team for me, draft. And Cannon just does this every year. He takes good players. I don't know how he does it. Podcast, copying my rankings, not sure what it is, but just good draft here from Cannon overall. Really like you said, the Saquon BTJ start was just amazing. So Cannon's my number 2 team, and then let me see.
Cannon's text.
Yeah, he did. So Cannon's responses: his favorite pick of his own, Kyron Williams in the 3rd. His least favorite pick of his own was James Conner over Chuba. He says he doesn't see James Conner actually being that bad, but he thinks Chuba could pop this year. Okay, dumbass. His favorite pick of someone else was Tyreek Hill at the 410, and then Kelsey in the 11th. His least favorite picks were Kamara in the 3rd or Travis Hunter in the 6th. His favorite roster other than his own was Will's, and his least favorite, he said, Andrew's depth is horrible, but overall it's got to be Jerry. And then his favorite moment from draft picking was the merch table from the Circle of the Wagons Championship. So, yeah, no, Cannon, great team, top 2 team for me.
All right, and now we've got one more team to talk about here. Process of elimination. It's my number 2 team, your number 1 team following the draft. So we've got you a consensus top 2. We've got White Shirt here at the top of our rankings. Consensus. And yeah, I mean, you went with a bit of an unconventional strategy, starting RB. Nobody else really went running back heavy, but you decided to lean into it. And then you went with 4 straight wide receivers. And so just looking at kind of how your team ended up, you've got a really solid, in my opinion, quarterback combo with Dak Prescott and Drake May. I think you can I like the upside of both of those guys this year, and you can kind of just play both of them in the matchups and get solid production. Obviously, your running backs are the strongest in the league with Ashton Genty, Josh Jacobs, and James Cook. You picked up Jalen Warren and Trey Benson late, who I think both have some pretty solid upside as well. And then when you look at your receivers, you don't have that dominant number 1 wide receiver, but you put together a really nice receiving core overall. T. Higgins, Rashee Rice, Ricky Pearsall, and Tedero McMillan. I feel like you have a good combination of all those guys of floor, upside, good offenses. You can mix and match there. Obviously, the big question mark being the Rashee Rice suspension, but to start the year, he's in your lineup and he should be a stud. And then we already talked about how I feel about Tyler Warren. He is going to be a guy that from the jump should be a solid tight end there. So you didn't invest high in the onesies, but I feel like you still got really good values at quarterback and tight end. And when you put that around the depth you built at running back and receiver, I just feel like there's not a lot of holes in your team. Now, if you don't start off great and Rashee Rice gets suspended, then you might be looking at some more holes. But even your depth, like I said, Warren, Benson, Marvin Mims, I like a lot. I don't know. I just really liked your team. I think that you're going to be going into the season looking to go on a winning streak. So obviously, you talked a little bit about how you feel about my team. How do you feel about your team?
I feel great about it. I think I came in with a game plan. It was weight on quarterback, weight on tight end, and just beast on the skill position value. And I think I did that pretty well. I played it safe, right? Genty, I guess you could say he's not safe because he's a rookie, but to me, with the amount of volume he's going to get in that offense, workhorse safe. Jacobs, workhorse safe. Notice like no other Raiders running back got taken. No other Packers running back got taken. There is no committee in Vegas or in Green Bay. James Cook is, I know he's not going to score 17 touchdowns again. I get it. The regression is coming, but he got paid. The Bills told him, we value you. He will be on the field more than any other Bills running back. Is Ty Johnson going to steal some third downs? Sure. Is Ray Davis going to get the garbage time and maybe a drive here or there? Sure. But James Cook is the guy. He is the starting running back for one of the best offenses in the league. I started off with 3 great running backs, boom, boom, boom. And then I hammered wide receiver 4 in a row. T. Higgins, top 3 passing offense in the Bengals. Rashee Rice, number 1 for Patrick Mahomes. Ricky Pearsall, high upside, second-year guy, first-round talent. The only reason he wasn't good last year is because he got shot in the chest. And then 6'4", best receiver coming out in this class, Tedder McMillan, number 1 alpha for Bryce Young, who looked great at the end of last year. So I just feel good about all 7 of those guys. And then, I feel good about the depth. I think the key for my team is going to be the onesies. Do Drake May or Dak Prescott, do one of those guys emerge as a top 5 option? Am I choosing poorly? Is Tyler Warren, is that rookie hype going to come through, or is he going to be a victim of Daniel Jones and that shitty passing offense? Those are some question marks I have. Overall, I'm not overly worried about it, though, because I know that in a 10-team league, there will be value at quarterback and tight end on waivers if the guys I took don't work out. So I feel really good about the roster. I agree that I didn't have like any insane steals, and I didn't really I don't have an insane alpha wide receiver. I just think I took a good player that I liked. I took my guy at every pick, and I'm never going to apologize for that. So I've got myself at number 1. I think I am back in the winner's circle this year in 2025. So number 1, white shirt. All right. Last, your number 1 team, my number 5. We kind of went through your roster from my perspective, but just talk about why you think the mega Bengal stack, Tyreek Hill, why does that make you the number 1 roster post-draft in the Blind Squirrels Fantasy League?
Yeah, I just think the Bengals have a chance to have a historically great offensive year. Their defense is really bad. They were absolutely cooking folks at the end of last season. I think that they could continue that into this year. I love having a stack, just providing so much upside. Jonathan Taylor, I think, has a chance to get back to that form he had in like 2020, 2021, whenever it was, where he's like leading the league in rushing. I like that Daniel Jones is the quarterback in Indianapolis there for him. And then Tyreek Hill just 2 years ago led the league in yards. I don't think he's washed. I think it was just kind of a tough year in Miami with the Tua injury and his own wrist injury. So I think he bounces back. David Njoku is going to soak up those Joe Flacco targets. He's been a monster whenever Joe Flacco's been the quarterback. And then I really just need to find flexes amongst Travis Hunter, generational talent, Calvin Ridley, who looks like he has a huge quarterback upgrade with Cam Ward, and then Matthew Golden, who is going to be the number 1 receiver for the Packers. And I don't know exactly what that means, but it means he should at least be startable. So I think I just have to find maybe some waiver guys. I'll sit on Colston Loveland, see if I can turn him into a trade chip. But I love the bones of my team. Obviously very, very Bengals dependent, but I'm willing to push all my chips in on the Bengals offensive production this year. And I think it's going to carry me to the playoffs. And then once I get to the playoffs, we'll see from there.
All right, this has been your very lengthy, long-winded draft review. We did your best picks, your worst picks, your draft rankings. There's your roster. Rosters ranked 1 through 10 from me and Trey. Next week, we'll be coming at you live with a season preview. We will pick our Sacko our playoffs, our irrelevance. We'll tell you the make or break player for each team and just give you a full breakdown heading to week 1 of the NFL season. We are 9 days away from NFL football, 12 days away from the first Scott Hansen red zone of the season. Trayton Benz, any parting words?
Nope, just stoked for football. It was great to see all the boys out at the draft. Just nothing like that 4-hour period of just getting into it, going after each other, and getting our teams.
Yep, good draft, everyone, except I fleeced all of you. Ashton Genty's going to be a number 1 running in fantasy. And as always, thank you all for listening to the Showtime Fantasy Podcast presented by Diet Coke. We'll see you guys next week.